friends from all over the world, and fellow P-Talk and P-Cast, Passion Talk and Passion Cast followers. I'm very, very excited about our next guest today, Dr. Amber Wigmore Alvarez, who is with us. She's in the room. She's in the house. That's right, exactly. And so I'm very excited for so many reasons. She might not know this. But one of the first reasons I'm excited to have this guest, who I've met, I don't know how many years, Amber, like over 10 years, 11, 12, 13. I've done my MBA 12 years ago. It's because of the energy that you spread, the passion through which you do things that you do so well, by the way. It's infectious. You transfer that passion to people around you. And this is something that maybe we'll have the time to talk about today. So today we have Dr. Amber Wigmore Alvarez. I don't know where to start because she's done so many amazing things. But let me start with some, important things. So she's currently the Chief Talent Officer at Hyatt, where she was also the Chief Innovation Officer for quite a few years. She also ran the company, Wigmore Alvarez, for many, many years, almost 20 years, if I'm right. She also is an academic in some prestigious schools. One of them, which I know quite well, is IE Business School, where she's an associate professor in sunny and beautiful Spain. Nobody gets jealous. She also is teaching in other business schools as well. She has done a PhD at Universidad de Córdoba, and she's got an MBA from IE Business School as well, and she's got a bachelor at Wheaton College, Massachusetts. So many, many things. I could spend hours talking about what she's done, scientific disseminations, talks, but today there's a topic that is very, very dear to many listeners and many people who are watching. It's about women in leadership. It's a very hot topic. We all have heard and probably seen some tweets about #MeToo movement. But beyond these hashtags and beyond this, it is something that fundamentally is shifting the way society is evolving, and it has been for a long time. So hi Amber. How are you?
Hello, Sok-ho. It's amazing to be back with you and talk about contagious enthusiasm. I was so excited when you reached out to me. And yes, we go back at least 12 years. And I recall one of the last times that we saw each other might have been at an IE Business School alumni dinner in London. Always great to be with you. And you've told way too much. In a nutshell, what I've done is basically dedicate my career to the careers of others. And I'm so passionate about that. Dr. Passion. Yeah, that's my passion is to help others find their way, to guide them and orient them. And I enjoy so much being with talent and helping however I can. Anyone from early careers talent all the way through to executive profiles. There's so many similarities. And it's so true that at different points in our career, people need guidance and you get off track at times. And we've been through a couple of very difficult years, and you see downsizing and restructuring. And it's just so important to have someone in your life that can mentor you, to help you get back on your feet and keep on going. Whenever you fall in one's career, and we all fall, you all get off track. So that's what I love doing. And anything related to careers, be it from the basic CV, cover letter, game-based assessment, salary negotiation, body language. That's something I'm extremely passionate about. Nonverbal communication. And you mentioned women. Well, we can definitely talk about that during this podcast. Great to be here.
Oh, this is exciting. I mean, let me build on this huge theme / topic about career. It's such an important thing, especially with COVID-19. We know that change is probably one of the only constant in the world. Change always happens, and the pandemic has taught us so many things, one of them being that we need to adapt. So with COVID-19, what are the latest trends, challenges, observation that you've had so far in terms of career shift for anyone really, not necessarily for women only, but what has happened since COVID-19 started? What have you observed, and what can be done?
One of the biggest things has been the shift to digital recruitment. So suddenly, and if we think about hiring that took place, I mean, you're from the business school world, the business schools or academic institutions or any university, it was largely based on recruiters going campus by campus, school by school to their core target schools. Well, suddenly, employers and recruiters couldn't go on campuses, and yet you have graduating classes that need to get placed. And I come from a career services world that no one likes to talk about the P word, placement, but we have to talk about it. And our schools base themselves largely on the strategic importance of positioning and rankings and reaccreditations. Well, these students are coming out, and you know how it is when you're approaching graduation, you don't have that internship or job, even more anxiety when suddenly you're not able to meet with the recruiters. So in our organization, you know, I come from IE Business School, where I continue as associate professor, but I also work for Hired EFMD, and Hired is the Career Services Initiative of the EFMD, which is the organization that accredits more than 700 business schools in 92 countries. So we are the shared career services platform. We have very much, from the start of Hired, a global outlook. We help employers connect with global talent no matter where they are. So what we did was we started in early, it was 2020, yes, early 2020, that we did a pilot virtual career fair for our talent in China because they started earlier, and it was a massive success. So that same year of the pandemic, we as a company, as an organization, we shifted to virtual career events, and we hosted 26 virtual career fairs that first year of 2020. So one of the things we saw is suddenly employers coming on board to virtual career events. So this is one of the things that has lasted. And even though we are getting back in some cases to on-campus events and in-person events, well, the recruiters, they really enjoyed being able to connect with thousands of talent around the world in a matter of hours. Some things we simply will not go back to. So at the same time, yes, that's the beauty of virtual recruiting. At the same time, as a candidate, now you are up against competition that you would have never imagined being up against. So how can we showcase our unique assets? And thinking about, as a candidate, the fact that on average you have 250 applicants for every job, and of which 9 or 10 will be equally as qualified, if not more qualified than you. So how do you set yourself apart? And that's where I do a lot of work. I one of the things I'm passionate about are doing CV clinics. And I can just imagine the audience now, like CV, it's such a hassle. People hate doing CVs. Well, I had more than 13,000 individuals, students, professionals come to my CV clinics in the last year. I do live express CV clinics, and I've actually just started co-hosting them with companies. So bringing in, for example, L'Oreal, Diageo, and doing an express review, because we know in 7 to 9 seconds, that's the industry average. That's what companies, recruiters are going to be looking at your CV. So this is one of the things. Now that's one of the trends now, is the whole virtual recruiting. And now in our virtual career fairs, you're even seeing things happening. I'm not going to say if it's necessarily good or bad, but it's all about looking for efficiencies. But we've started seeing employers come to our virtual fairs. And yes, they have the recruiters there for the live chat, either via written or video. But we've seen some recruiters putting directly the link to their assessment center or to a game-based assessment. So almost like, as a first step, let's not even waste my time or your time talking. You're interested in our company, you take the assessment, and we'll reach out to you if you're a good fit. So you see some really exciting stuff happening in the HR tech world. It's completely revolutionizing the talent space. So from game-based assessment companies like Arctic Shores, Pymetrics, to name a couple, NAC, you see a lot happening with the applicant tracking systems, ATS. So, and it's so interesting. Even when I talk to career services, they're often so largely unaware of how companies use applicant tracking systems to scan their CV in as a first wave. And it's 75% of companies use applicant tracking systems. And if we're looking at the Fortune 500 companies, it's up to 98%. So it's if you don't have that certain number of relevant keywords in your CV, Taleo is one that's based on relevant keywords. So these are just a couple of examples. And then there's some other companies. I think of an Irish company called AllSorter that are doing some great work in making CVs for the company, from a company perspective, blinding out, doing blind recruitment. So let's blind out the gender. Let's blind out the schools they're from, because it could mean certain socioeconomic status. So blinding out certain areas. So making a very large number of CVs much more readable, but let's do this in a way that will be contributing to inclusive selection processes to bring on the diversity that we need on our team. And then I'll just name one final company here doing something really interesting. It's a company called Intro. I actually believe they're London-based. Intro with a double R, INTRRO. And what they do is they connect companies' applicant tracking systems to their current employees' LinkedIn networks. So basically, as I tell my students, what does this mean? If you want to work for whatever company, you better be connected to current employees in that company, because what these companies are doing these days is they're going to their current employees' LinkedIn networks, connecting it with the applicant tracking system, and that's how they're sourcing talent. So it's reverse engineering the selection process. And this is fascinating. And then from a candidate perspective, I think we've all heard about the Great Resignation. It's been a couple of years when people have really had a lot of time to think about what's important to them, what's not, our values, do those align with our organization? And one thing I would say here, it's really think through this, because something that we're seeing now is a lot of people having quickly left their jobs, and now the statistics are saying certain percentage are regretting this a few months later. So that's what we now call the Great Realization after the Great Resignation. So these are some of the trends I see. I guess something that I've always been passionate about, it's being able to be uniquely positioned. But I don't just speak with the talent, but on a daily basis, I talk to the talent, the schools, career services, and also the recruiters to understand and take the pulse of all of them, and how can we accelerate the matching between the stakeholders.
Great realization. I'm writing this down. This is fascinating. I have a follow-up question, which is, with the shift of the way, in this change in the way companies are recruiting right now, one could argue that it might require a shift of mentality for a company X located, let's say, in London or Madrid or New York, to hire, once upon a time, local talent to today, now, global talent. So hiring people based out of Tokyo, Zimbabwe, South America, to work on global projects. If that is the case, how do you think companies cope with this whole idea of virtual work, and especially from a talent management perspective?
Great question. And you really uncover there like a can of worms. So a few things happening in this space. First of all, yes, companies are much more open to the remote global talent. Now, a few things, and I'm even starting to see in our vacancies and certain vacancies, and you'll probably see across most of the major job boards, no longer do you necessarily need to search by location, but you can even directly search for remote. So now you can work anywhere in the world, and you start to see, and especially executive search firms that are hiring for clients and whose vacancies are very well written, you start to see you can be based anywhere in the world, but they look for a certain proximity to a major international airport. So that's something interesting, is now you can be anywhere just as long as you're within certain distance, kilometers, miles from the nearest airport. But this also creates, in my mind, and this is someone based in Spain, working for an organization in Norway, as a US citizen. So, I mean, taxes, I've done taxes in all three countries like the last few years.
Bless you.
I know, as a US citizen, you're responsible, even if I've been overseas for 23 years to do my declaration. But how about international tax law? Like fiscal, this is so amazing. Just think about the needs. And I advise so many students and alumni and executives. This is a career with tremendous potential now, international taxation. Think of the opportunities now just for digital nomads alone, right, in this space. So incredible. And what you say too, it's like fascinating. That HR department that people would once think sleepy, boring department, when one of the last HR, the sourcing summits, this has become such a high-tech profile field and area. It's no longer like the HR generalist profile that you once knew. These individuals are so tech savvy in the way they are sourcing talent. It's very strategic, and it is a world that is moving at a very, very fast pace, which is why it's important that our career services teams, our schools are staying up to par, the faculty. It's important that, they're in touch with the world today, and schools also know how can we embed employability skills into our programs. And we're constantly polling our talent all over the globe to understand. And it was just, we launched a talent survey in April, and 65% said that they would feel more prepared. They believe that their school should actually embed employability skills more into the degree programs. And just speaking to one of the students today, a master's in supply chain student from one of our schools, he was saying how, yes, they have a course on career preparedness, effectiveness, but it's not connected with careers. So there's a lot of disconnects here, and we need to connect the dots to make our talent more employable. And he also said, and I'm not so confident that when I go out to my job, the next job, that the senior leaders are actually prepared to help me continue in my career in Industry 4.0. So it's not only, okay, yes, we control the talent, let's say, when they're in our schools, but when they get out there, are the companies then prepared to continue training them to progress and grow in their careers? And if not, the companies are going to start losing them. So this is some of the reasons why actually we, in the fall of 2021, we forged a major partnership with Coursera, and we call that hired upskill. With Coursera, because our schools often, the careers and employability centers, if you will, of universities, tend to be run on very lean resources. Yes, I come from a school that had a large careers team. However, many, even top schools and top ranked schools, might have a much smaller team. And you just can't be that department for absolutely everyone in such diverse student profiles. And so knowing that companies are looking for the in-demand digital skills, well, how can they keep up? Well, this is where our partnership with Coursera comes in for 8,000 courses, guided projects that students, alumni can do on their own time and stay up to date and employable, as the shelf life of skills is rapidly declining post-COVID, right? So it's important, and that's driving talent to upskill and reskill on their own. And at the same time, the employers, the best companies, yes, they are creating learning ecosystems, but often as well with small teams, they also look to partners like Coursera, and you look for strong brands that when students and alumni put that on their profiles, that companies recognize and value because they know the academic rigor behind it.
Fascinating. In-demand digital skills, a lot of resonance in this couple of words. So with this in-demand digital skills, extremely trendy as in currently happening, How do you think organization can make the most of this trend to include women in the workplace?
To include women in the workplace. So we do a lot of work in the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's really interesting to see as well how companies reorder the letters based on where they're putting priority. And I asked this question myself, just like you just asked me. I asked this to our employers, and we organize twice a year major digital conference where we invite the talent, we invite employers, and I invite companies like L'Oreal and Mondelez and AB InBev and International Organization of Migration from the United Nations, and I ask them these same questions. And what are they doing in this space, and women and other underrepresented employees and individuals and groups. And something, Sok-ho, that's really interesting. It feels at times like we've been talking about this for years, and yet then it's like we don't make major headway, right? And I guess, one of the things, it's like the piecemeal. Like you see that companies do like a small initiative here or a campaign here, and it's like something a lot larger and systemic needs to happen. And I had an interesting conversation not too long ago with I'm thinking headhunter, but it's actually the consulting, I'm thinking of it in Spanish, search consultants. That's the official word. Yeah, so the executive search consultants, so also known as headhunters, and of course, headhunters comes to mind. And I was speaking to a search consultant in very reputed, that was looking initially, thinking about hiring someone that would be responsible for EDI in the organization, and they would work with all the different clients that have EDI goals for their organizations. And ultimately, they were sharing how I said, "Oh, how did the search go? In the end, did you find the person?" And they said, "Well, actually, after 2 different searches, like 2 different years, having finalized a number of shortlisted candidates and truly given the time to think about it, we ended up not hiring one single person, but we realized that diversity is seen from a very different lens all over the globe. And in Australia, it could be Aborigines, and it's so many different things. And when you ask about diversity in different countries, that they said it was so difficult to find that one person who could be a thought leader and inspirational for our whole organization, all our clients, on diversity on a global basis. What we ended up doing was, for each of our regions and our country offices, having a task force that was focused on EDI for that country and those campaigns. And I think that made a lot of sense when they explained it. I thought that does seem to be the way to go, because it makes me think that a lot of companies haven't progressed so much in this area because they were trying to do the exact same thing. It's like when a company wants to do digital transformation and they hire the chief data officer. Well, it's not that easy with diversity. It's not, okay, let's hire a chief diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then we'll get the whole company and thousands of employees and all of our clients aligned. It means different things in different parts of the world. And to be honest, there are certain parts of the world, well, maybe bringing more women on board, it's just not what their focus is, and unfortunately, right? So I think that's more of the approach, and I think I'm going to be tracking their progress, but I think that's where things need to head with EDI and then women. And one of my biggest things, and I'm always passionate about women in the workplace. Wheaton College that you said, when I went to Wheaton College, and Wheaton was an all women's university in the United States until, I guess it was until 88 when it went coeducational. And I went there, and I'm dating myself, at 1992. And so very, very few men at Wheaton at the time. And it was largely a feminist education, and everything. It was our freshman seminar. It was all about, and my courses were women in the former Soviet Union, and it was all about women and women's empowerment. So that's what I come from, and I still, it's like so ingrained in me that in my classes, even coeducational classes, I'm always with body language, telling the women what to do, how to ask for more, and how to negotiate salary, and how to spread out in a meeting room. But I mean, there's things that women, and I feel that, never to put the blame on men at all. One of the things is women in careers and not getting more women in the C-suite, and the gender pay gap. It's largely due to women. It's women or men, let's say, are 4 times more likely to negotiate their salaries. And I cannot tell you how many times I have called a woman to offer her a job and had her accept the job, and me just thinking, no, negotiate, and women leave money on the table, negotiate that salary. You can't say that to them, but they're leaving money. When a recruiter calls, when an employer calls, I mean, in almost all cases, they are expecting you to negotiate that salary. I mean, there's very few exceptions, and it might be like a graduate program with a very structured pay scale. In any case, there's always something you can negotiate, be it relocation, tuition reimbursement, startup, sign-on bonus, you name it. I can help you with that. So, and anyone in that situation, just reach out. But those are some of the things. It's the women need to negotiate more in a boardroom, spread out more. Women are still, you look around, like very neat and small in front of them. They have their things. For men, spread out. And I am by no means everyone. It's so important that everyone is their own authentic self, and you live your life authentically and who you are. But it's true that from a body language perspective, well, first of all, only 7% of our language is the spoken word. 55% is our body language. And this is why it's important that we watch our body language in business settings, in our day-to-day, because it definitely influences how others see us. And if they see us as commanding of authority. So there's things that we can do, but I always say, be yourself. I mean, there's Ursula Burns, a former chairman of Vion, an American executive, and she would do the hand steepling. And, I always share that in my class, if you were to put your hands in the steeple position. And I share that because while that's a great display of confidence, for me, that's not something I naturally do. So I would do other things, like maybe if I'm in a boardroom and I'm responding to a question, I might put my hands on the edge of the boardroom table and lean in and listen and respond. That's another great display of confidence, but that's me. So the last thing I ever want to do is change anyone's voice and their authentic self. But there's certainly things that as a woman, we can be aware of this and negotiate. Women are very afraid of what we call the social cost of negotiating, worried about being seen as aggressive. If you don't ask for that, you get in life what you ask for. And again, you're leaving money on the table, and you're not looking career savvy because those recruiters are expecting you to negotiate. So do your research, and you can confidently ask for what you deserve. And just remember, men and women out there, you don't get in life what you deserve. You get what you negotiate when it comes to salary. So do it well, negotiate well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody, you heard it from Amber directly. Negotiate. Be aware, be yourself, negotiate. This is such a great tip. An organization that listening, I really love this view on from piecemeal to larger and systemic solution. Absolutely. It's been fascinating, Amber. I would probably keep you for hours or days, but I will free you. You have got so many more people to help and with their career and this right now, this huge in-demand digital skills that is booming and the digital recruitment. So, Dr. Amber Wigmore Alvarez, it was fantastic, very fascinating, a lot of great practical views from you. It's been an honor to have you in our channel. I hope that our followers and people who are browsing and listening will also enjoy as much as I did. Amber, thank you so much. And
thank you, Sok-ho, and for all that you do and your contagious enthusiasm, like you said at the beginning. And that makes you so memorable. And when you reached out, I immediately, remembered you, and I was so excited to do this podcast together. So you're really inspiring so many out there, and you have been for so many years since your business school time. So keep up what you're doing. You're an inspiration.
I hope you enjoyed the chat. If you did, share, like, subscribe, and please join me for the next one.